much better did the Clippers get by swapping Lou Williams for Rajon Rondo here?
They improved greatly. There's no doubt about it. Now, like I said earlier, I still got the Lakers as the favorites if they're healthy in the West, but the Clippers certainly got closer to the Lakers. Look at it this way. If Rajon Rondo was on that team with the Clippers last year, do you think they lose to Denver? No. They win that series, get to the Western Conference, and take Rondo off the Lakers. I mean, that's how close this situation is. Playoff Rondo is a real thing. It's not just the eye test, which is extensive. It is statistically, he improves in scoring, in assists, in minutes played, in impact, all the way up till last year. And so that's legit. Yeah. And the Clippers they've been a little disappointed. They got on a nice little streak now. They've won 4 straight against some pretty good teams. But their problem has been down the stretch. All right, in the clutch, they put the ball in Kawhi's hands or Paul George's hands, and those guys can handle the ball and make some plays, but they're not great playmakers in the vein of a LeBron James where you just give them the ball and let them go. They degenerate the team into ISO basketball. The ball stops moving because those two aren't really playmakers. Now you get a Rondo in there, a point guard who can get guys in the right positions, who is a leader, who will get Kawhi the ball in his scoring spots. Same thing with PG3, knows how to win. This is big for them. They got much better. There's no doubt about it.
Listen, Rondo's the best player in the league that averages 4 points a game. There's no doubt about it. Draymond's averaging a little more, so he'd be ahead of him. Listen, Broussard, can we put Broussard on the screen? This is a safe space, my friend. Let's unpack this for a moment, okay? First of all, they did just lose Lou Williams, who I'm old enough to remember. Lou Williams was a huge part of the reason last year's Clippers were going to win the title. The scoring off the bench, the scoring punch off the bench. But now they understand Lou Williams can't play in the playoffs, which they didn't understand last year, and so now he's gone. They are admitting, and I think you can admit this is the Clippers admitting their offseason coming off the failure of the postseason. Their offseason was a failure because they could have gotten Rajon Rondo in free agency. They didn't. Instead, they decided giving Luke Kennard $64 million made a lot of sense and give Marcus Morris $64 million and ignore the free agency spot. And now they have to trade for a guy who, if we were ranking free agent signings from this past offseason, do you know what would come in last of all the free agent signings by every team? The Hawks signing of Rajon Rondo. And they're now tied to Rondo for next year as well. And what, you disagree? You think the Hawks like that signing? The 2 years around $30 million they gave Rondo for the 4 points in 27 games he's played? You think they like it? That was a good signing? They do it again? Or no? It was a disaster for them, and they're getting off of it. I'm just curious. And the only hope is he can recreate what he did for 2 rounds in the playoffs last year, right? Because we have no evidence in the regular season he's been a good player in 6 years. I'm just asking, is anything I said wrong? You look perplexed, but I think everything I just said there is an accepted fact. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me.
A lot wrong.
You're poo-pooing he doesn't get it done in the regular season at an older age. But that's my point. In the playoffs, he improves every year. And Lou Williams was having his worst season in about 7 years, Nick. Come on, stop that. And like you said, you can't play him in the playoffs. You can't play him at the end of games because opponents hunt him. You know this.
Yeah, I agree
if Rondo had gone to the Lakers, you'd be praising the move.
I wouldn't.
I mean,
Rondo
is going to
I just have to follow up real quick.
I'm not saying he's Kyle Lowry.
Real quick.
I'm just saying he's going to help.
I got to follow up real quick. So the Hawks, so Lou Williams having his worst year. You can't play him at the end of the games. He's 35, 36 years old, right? That's Lou Williams. And that is the best the Hawks could get for Rajon Rondo, which makes me think maybe Rondo isn't this infinity stone, end-of-game solver you're making him out to be. If the best you can get is Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks, maybe Rondo's on a bad contract averaging 4 points a game and not a lot of teams wanted him. Maybe. Maybe that's
Why
the case.
didn't you
I
use
could be
that
wrong.
same logic for Victor Oladipo?
No, this is.
There's no doubt that playoff Rondo last year was a thing. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it's also true that for Rondo to be
Year
good,
before?
for Rondo to be used the year before. You mean the last time he
2
was in the
years before,
playoffs?
New Orleans.
With New Orleans. He was good for one round with New Orleans and then bad in the second round. Shockingly, Rajon Rondo had an easy time on the offensive end against the Blazers. Spoiler alert, every team that's ever played the Blazers in every round of the playoffs had an easy time offensively because they're horrific defensively and always have been. But Wildes, Rondo, in order to be useful for the Lakers last year, needed to be about 50% better in the playoffs in the regular season. For him to be useful, he has to be about 300% better. He is this year so far, one of the worst players in the league. He's way worse than he was with the Lakers. As an added benefit, though, the one thing he's maintained from his time with the Lakers is he's hurt all the time still. The idea that Rondo is the big move you made to solve your point guard thing strikes me as a little, call it overly optimistic.
I know, but Nick, have you ever talked to your parents or your wife and they say something that you were thinking? You're like, wow, how'd you know that? And they say, well, I know you better than you know yourself. That's what your friend Chris Broussard just did. Broussard said it perfectly, that if you guys, the Lakers, somehow got Rondo, we would be here like, I'm old enough to remember when Rajon Rondo gave us 19 points in 30 minutes to clinch a ring. And guess what, Broussard? I'm old enough to remember when Avery Bradley started 44 games. And guess what, everybody? The Lakers are back. The championship Lakers are back in business.
Here's the problem with that.
Called it.
Except the problem is Broussard and you and Jenna and Brandon, you don't have to do a hypothetical. How would Nick react if Rajon Rondo played for the Lakers? What would Nick be saying? He should be a coach. He shouldn't play. I don't like him as a player. I'm shocked by what he's doing in the postseason. I said all of those things. Don't act like my Rondo opinion has changed because he's wearing a different Los Angeles uniform. You guys all know I've been consistent on this point, but I'm excited. If you were going to add somebody whose averages 4 points per game, he's definitely one of the top 2 or 3 guys I would add.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.